What is going on out there, podcast family, and welcome back to another episode of our Behind the Bike series. If you've not listened to this series before, the objective of this podcast is to take you, the listener, inside a bike brand and introduce you to some of the people who help bring specific bikes to market. On this episode, I'm joined by some members of the Canyon team. So first of all, Daniel Oster. Daniel is the director of the Gravity product range at Canyon, followed by Moritz Stroer. Moritz is a product engineer at Canyon's HQ in Germany. And last but not least, we're going to have a chat with Jack Noi. Jack heads up Canyon UK. He basically does all manner of things, from marketing through to customer support, and also helps alongside the demo team too. I've been riding Canyon's Strive 8.0 for a couple of months now, basically since lockdown, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time on this bike. Canyon sort of described this bike as an all-mountain enduro bike. It has their patented Shapeshifter on it, which if you're not too sure what that is, then bear with us because we're going to take a bit of a deep dive into that with Moritz. It retails at £3,549 and is stacked with a good spec. Like I say, I fully enjoyed my time on this bike. I'm not going to go too deep into sort of geometry or anything like that on it right now, but we do get into that a little bit on the podcast, as you will hear. So without further ado, just going to hand over to Daniel now, who's going to talk us through a little bit about product development, and then into Moritz, who's been at Canyon for around 6 years, and then Jack, who heads up Canyon UK, like I said before. So enjoy the episode, folks, and I hope you guys take something away from this. Enjoy.
Okay, I'm Daniel Oster. I'm with Canyon since 2008 now, and it was not initially my plan to be with the company so long, but in the end, it's the last 10 or 11 years were quite exciting because the company was a small one when I started and was growing so much, so a lot of interesting stuff. So I stayed with the company until now, and I'm really happy to be with those guys and push the brand and the products forward. And what I'm doing at Canyon, I'm responsible for the category, for the mountain bike category, more for the longer travel bikes.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the product, so it's like Spectral, Strive, Sender, and Strive and all those bikes, and taking care of the product and communication of those products.
Okay, perfect. So if you don't mind me asking, like, what did you do before you joined Canyon?
Before I joined Canyon, I worked for a media agency doing communication for Shimano, for Schwalbe, and then I studied a little bit, and I worked for really small German bike companies around 2000, and that's my experience.
Okay, so you've been in the bike industry for, wow, that'll be 20 years-ish?
Yeah.
Excuse my maths, but around 20 years.
I started riding with around 12 years and started to do racing, and then had small sponsors and stuff. And then, in school was not too much fun, so I decided to get into a job and started with one of my sponsors. So it's a smaller local company, and then I stayed there until today.
Okay, and you said before that when you joined Canyon, it was a pretty small not a small company, but it was a lot smaller than what it is probably right now. So what are some of like the major things that you've seen happen at Canyon over the last sort of 10 years, really? Like, what are the major steps that you've seen happen? And it's pretty cool that you've stayed there even though you didn't really expect to stay there. So you must, like you said, it's an exciting time for the brand and for the bike industry in general, I think. So what is it that's like really made you stay with the business?
Just to start with this, when I started, we were around 150 people, and the company was quite road focused. And the mountain bike offering was not what I thought is probably the best at that time, but that also made it quite interesting to support the company, to improve the mountain bike products with a good team, with the other colleagues, I mean, there were more and more people are coming in from all over the place. Yeah. More and more mountain bike people who were coming in, and so there were a lot of opportunities to do. And I mean, if you start in a perfect company where everything is 100%, then you can't do so much. But here are a lot of things, and as the company is growing quite fast and not everything is structured so well, you have a lot of opportunities what you can do, and there are a lot of projects waiting for you.
Yeah.
And this makes it exciting. Until today, I mean, it's still the case. The company is it's still growing and improving, and always many projects to do.
Yeah, it must be, like I said, pretty exciting time, especially as mountain biking's sort of blown up over the last 10 years, really. You know, mountain biking's definitely spiked. So you joined the company, and then you've sort of watched that whole growth trajectory of mountain biking, you know, with trail bikes and enduro bikes and all that sort of stuff. So that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. Are you able to sort of see those market trends happening before they happen? Does that make sense?
I mean, it's a difficult thing always to be on top everywhere. And I mean, what you often forget is you need some time to develop products. And maybe you have an idea, and then you start the development, and then other one comes before, stuff like that. I mean, normally, development of a bike, if you are quick, you need 2 years. Often it's also longer. Then sometimes you have to fight for the capacities or the manpower to get those projects done, and so it's always hard to be
almost like ahead of it. You're almost behind it all the time, trying to not catch up, but sort of like follow the trend. Okay, super interesting. As you know, we said before we started recording, the whole premise of this podcast is to take people behind the bike and, you know, introduce my listeners to people who make these things happen. So Daniel, give me a rundown of like, what is a regular day/week for you? What does your job actually entail?
Oh, that's a good question. And I question myself every Monday. Okay, what should I do this week, or what's the most important thing? What's the most important thing to do? Yeah, as I said, I'm involved in different areas of the company. So normally, we start the week with a product team, figuring out where we are standing with the project, with the products, and then we have a lot of product meetings where we discuss all the different projects in a technical way, in terms of timing, what's quite crucial, and maybe also one of the biggest parts you have to do to make sure you get the product in time. I mean, the exciting stuff is to talk about geometries, to talk about suspension, to talk about all the features you want to have on the bike, and what can we improve and what can we do. But for sure, there's also a lot of management stuff, as I said, to get the things done in time and to get all the material in time. And besides all the product related topics, I'm working quite close with the marketing team, to become also strong as a mountain bike brand. Because I mean, as we are quite wide, as we are quite generalistic brand, offering products on the road side, on the mountain bike side, and also on urban and fitness side. So you have to think, okay, how can we be how can we be accepted as a proper mountain bike brand, what we are. But I mean, we are a lot of companies within one. So there's a mountain bike group, and there's a road bike group, etc.
Okay.
So
It's pretty cool. So do you have a little bit to do with the marketing side of it as well? Is that right? Because I sort of want to talk to you about some marketing things shortly, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So somehow a link between R&D and marketing, and in the end, all those components have to work together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, the bike that I've been riding, which Jack down at Canyon UK sent me, was the Strive. So I've been riding the Canyon Strive for, to be honest, quite a long time, because I'm going to talk to I'm going to talk to Jack about this story. But basically, the bike landed, and then coronavirus pandemic kicked off in the UK, which means that, I've basically had this bike maybe a little bit longer than I expected to have it, but it also means that I've ridden it a lot more than I expected to ride it, which is good. It's meant that I haven't really been able to, go on some trips and, ride some bike parks and stuff like that, because everything's closed. But I've thoroughly enjoyed riding the bike. Can you tell me a little bit about the Strive? I've been riding, just for your reference, I've been riding the 8.0 in black. It's a beautiful looking bike. Has the Canyon Strive always been in the range since you joined the company, or do you remember the first time that the Strive was launched?
Oh no! I mean, when I started with the company, there was no Strive, and then around 2011, 10 or 11, one of my colleagues, an engineer, came up with the idea, or through discussions, the idea came up. Okay, we need something that you can adapt geometry and suspension more to, where you are going. If you're going flat or uphill or downhill, normally, ideally, you should adapt this geometry. Yeah. I mean, that is not a completely new idea. There were other companies also doing this. But then we started figuring out, okay, what are the good things that are on the market? Where are the opportunities? What we could improve? And so, around 2011 it was, we started with the project. Mm-hmm. And then in 12, we had some prototypes, did some testing, and then Fabian Barrel started with us. Okay. We wanted to jump into the upcoming enduro racing scene around that time. So we discussed with Fabian, and when Fabian saw the prototypes and heard about the concept, he was quite interested, because he's always interested about, okay, how can I improve my performance, and how can I improve riding, and especially geometry was a big thing always for him. So we started working together with him, and evolved this product. And then I guess it was in 2014 we introduced the first generation of the Strive. Okay. And we raced it in the EWS. And then the 29 trend becomes stronger and stronger. I mean, and then we decided, okay, we need an evolution of this bike. We have to update suspension, we have to update geometry, we have to update also the wheel size. And so we introduced a new generation beginning of 2019. Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, which is you upgraded the wheels to 29-inch wheels to sort of follow that trend. And I think you pretty much overhauled the complete bike too, right?
we had a lot of discussions with the wheels. In between, the last generation started with 27s, and we did a mullet bike because we also like this concept quite a lot. But then we were also not sure if it's because it looked a little bit like a Frankenstein, and so we decided to go for full 29, as we thought, okay, it should be positioned more as a race bike and should be a fast bike. So ideally we go for the big wheels. Yeah. And exactly. Yeah.
I'm interested in the whole like the prototyping stage, because that's super interesting to me. So, when you make the decision to sort of overhaul a bike, really sort of play with geometry, what are the first sort of stages of that? Is it a case of mocking things up, obviously digitally, but then do you start getting frames sort of built and sent over to start testing them? Is that how it works?
Yeah, kind of, as you said, for sure. We start first, with drafts and ideas, and then it also depends a little bit how many things you want to change. Sometimes you do an evolution, so you don't do so many prototypes. Yeah, but if you do something really new or more difficult, let's say like the Strives, then you start with some aluminium prototypes.
Okay.
And test different geometries, test different kinematics, and especially with the Strive, for sure we had to test the new generation of the Shapeshifter. Exactly.
Yeah, the Shapeshifter's really cool, super interesting, and I believe my next guest is Moritz, who played a pretty big part in bringing the Shapeshifter to life. Is that right?
He was the main engineer working on the Strive
Cool.
in the second generation. So there was another engineer who's still in the company, Vincent. He's more doing pre-development stuff, and he worked on the initial version of the Shapeshifter and also on the latest Shapeshifter generation together with Fox. So he developed the gas spring. But Moritz was the project engineer who did the bike around the Shapeshifter. Let's say it like this.
Right. Okay. Cool. Well, he's coming up next. So I'm going to take a bit more of a deep dive about the Shapeshifter with him.
Yeah.
When it comes to, we've gone through the sort of prototyping stage a little bit just then about finally getting this thing to be able to come to market. How then do you go about sort of figuring out what spec you're going to put on specific bikes? How does that whole process work? Are you sort of in touch a little bit more with manufacturers, like RockShox and Fox and SRAM and stuff like that? How does that whole process sort of come to light?
Okay, for sure. We have some close partners, as you mentioned, like SRAM and Fox and Shimano. And they are trying to involve us quite early into their think processes or idea processes to get also our input and where we want to go. And we normally work together with them on new directions, especially when you're talking about standards, like changing shocks to metric size or bringing up stuff like that. We discuss it together, and exactly.
Yeah. And then from that, do you start sort of specking, like an entry level bike all the way through to sort of a full blown EWS ready, top podium contending bike?
More or less like that. It depends on the family and what our goals are, where we want to position the bike. If it should be more positioned as a fun product or positioned more as a race product, and and then we try to for sure hit the different price points that are relevant for the different markets.
And how much are sort of pro athletes and team riders and stuff, how much are they involved in this process usually?
It always depends a little bit on the product, or more on the riders, because not every rider is able to communicate properly or give proper feedback.
Yeah.
And but normally, though, the guys are involved in the prototype stage normally, because this is a stage when we can change something. So they are heavily involved in the development of the frame itself, and then for the component stuff, this is more done by let's say ourselves. I mean, often we include them in shock setup or doing the shock setup, because it's quite good to have a balance between average rider like us, for example, and then a pro athlete like, for example, Fabian. And then if both riders like the bike, then it's normally the sign that we can go for it.
Yeah. Which riders have you worked with then that are good at this stuff? Because like you said, I mean, some athletes have exceptional amounts of talent on a bike, but they probably can't break down what it's doing and how it's working. So who have you worked with that are really good at sort of, giving you guys feedback and saying like, this needs to change or this needs to change?
As I said now, Fabian is one of the main guys, also taking care now of all the let's say gravity athletes, and he built up a kind of base for the teams in south of France where testing is also good. So when we go for testing, we often go to the Nice area or it's also close to Finale, Ligure, and Sanremo and those areas. So we often go there for testing,
right,
and go with Fabian. And then we have the other enduro guys like Dimitri Trowa.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the DH side, we are working with a team quite closely. So with Troy Brosnan and his mechanic mainly, who are involved in testings as well. And for sure, the race mechanics are also really good source to get feedback about existing products and what to improve for the next generation.
Okay. It's interesting. Super interesting. One of my final questions for you was, a topic that I'm really interested in, which is the marketing side of all this. You guys have run some really cool marketing campaigns. I love the one where you did the sort of "This is why" and "Draw the line" as well. Was that one of yours?
Draw the Line was the Sender campaign.
That's really good. Really cool.
A lot of fun.
So take the Strive for example. You've overhauled the bike. You've got a new 29-inch version coming out. When does all the marketing for this sort of start to happen? And how do you plan sort of the budget that goes with it and all that sort of stuff? Like how what's the process for that at Canyon?
And normally or ideally it starts it starts in the beginning, so that the marketing is involved from the initial steps of the project. And normally you have an idea when you start to do a bike, you have some ideas already in mind, how you want to position it and what you want to do with it. And sometimes you also have some ideas how the marketing campaign has to look like. We did it, for example, some years ago with a talk. We had this campaign, Unruly, Unbound, Unreal, to show a little bit the different characters of the bike, or that you can do many things with the talk. And then one of our designers, he had some drafts with colors, and those colors we used later on in the marketing campaign. So there are a lot of small things coming together. Right. But from process-wise, ideally you start half year before, often with a production of content. You are most of the time you are too late with all the stuff, and so it's a little bit of a hurry in the end.
Okay. And then I guess that one of the main things is getting magazines and content producers to ride the bikes too, which is always a bit of a battle. So you have demo teams which go out and do that for you. Is that right?
Normally we do a introduction to the media people some weeks before we launch it officially, to discuss about the bike. Also, it's also interesting to get some feedback, to have some time to ride together, and it's always interesting also for us to get all this feedback from the media, who's quite experienced with the bikes and rides a lot of different products. Yeah. And this also gives you an initial feel how the bike will do on the market. Yeah.
Just a couple more questions, dude, really, as well. That again, a couple of topics which really interest me. The first one would be, I wanted to ask you, you seem naturally with your job and been so sort of embedded in the industry, you do see marketing trends and also general trends happening. What can you see happening in mountain biking for the next, let's say, 5 years, as far as tech and that sort of thing goes? Like, what can you see happening? And if you have any little insights into new products, that's always nice too.
No, I mean, in general, what I think is quite interesting is all the direction with customization of products and the new possibilities you probably have by 3D printing and things like that. That's a direction that's really, I think interesting for sure because I mean we're always discussing about geometries and stuff and what's right and wrong, and I mean in the end you have to feel good on the bike and the bike has to feel right, and there are so many things, also individual things between different people. So it's also quite interesting if you have those opportunities, and this is one big trend. Then on the e-bike side, I mean, it's changing every day. The different motor, battery concepts, and it's going so fast. I'm a little bit wondering where it goes and where the mountain bike without any motor support will be in a few years. I hope it stays.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard a few people say a similar thing though, that as batteries are getting smaller, it's almost feels like it's going to be at a point where you can either have the e-bike engaged or not engaged. Because the battery will be so small and light, it almost won't make a difference.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly.
I don't know where I stand with that, to be honest. I'm very much on the fence whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, I personally, I love jumping on an e-bike every now and again, but my heart of hearts, I'm a traditionalist. I feel like you should be pedaling.
Yeah, same to me. Yeah, I feel the same. It's a lot of fun, but I'm also on the fence. Yeah. And I think then, suspension, adaptivity, to different terrains. Also, I mean, if we are talking about e-bikes, and then we are talking about electronics, and when we are talking about electronics, there are also a lot of opportunities what we have in terms of suspension adaptivity or geometry adaptivity. What we initially talked about when we talked about the Strive, to adapt the bike more to the different riding scenarios you have. So this is the big thing, because for the different scenarios or areas you always need different bikes, and if you have bikes that can adapt more to those conditions, it's also super interesting.
Good point.
But for sure electronics, this is always the downside of making bikes complex and expensive, and I'm often thinking the good thing about riding a bike is the bike is so simple, and I had the new Access on my bike for quite a while,
right,
and then the battery I was on a ride, and then the battery was empty, and I could choose, okay, should I go now to drop my post or to shift, and I swapped batteries back and forth, and after that I dismounted the stuff and thought, okay, I stay with a mechanical stuff.
Geez,
it's way more freedom, and I mean freedom in the end is what riding bikes is about, and independency, and so
it is a grey area. I feel like it's almost we've seen it happen in the car industry of cars just becoming that that advanced that you can't work on your own car anymore. If your car breaks, you can't do anything about it, and I'd hate for that to happen with bikes, because part of the fun is being able to work on your own bike and sort of change things and stuff like that. But if it's so technology advanced, it's just taking away that side of it, which I think most people really enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't get me wrong. Again, I think there's a place for it. That there is definitely a place for e-bikes that have got access and that have got everything electronic. But I don't know. I just don't understand quite where that place is personally just yet.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, final question. Out of this whole process of prototyping and marketing and all this sort of stuff, what are the most fun parts and what is the hardest part of your job?
Okay, the most fun part for sure is testing the prototypes, but it's also quite interesting to bring all the ideas together with a team and to set up a new concept for the bike and then try this concept for the first time. I would say those two topics are the most fun in the whole process, and I think the most annoying or the hardest part is to bring the project through, taking care of timelines and stuff like this. Because this is always a difficult part with suppliers, etc. And especially now it will be even more difficult when we are not able to travel to the suppliers and get all the things done in those times.
Yeah, coronavirus has definitely thrown some curveballs, hasn't it? It's are you working at home or are you still in the office?
No, luckily we are working at home with the whole team.
Right.
So it works quite well. Having a lot of calls for sure, but it works. It works quite well here.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you. Appreciate you taking the time out, learning more about Canyon and about the process of bringing one of these things to light. We're gonna follow up right now with hand over to Moritz, and then we're gonna talk to Jack right at the end about Canyon in the UK. So okay, final thing, and I'm so sorry. I want you to pitch a question to Moritz and also to Jack. So if you could ask them anything, what would you ask them?
Oh yeah, I think quite interesting was your question about the future of bikes.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I can do that for you, no problem. So ask him about the future.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. I'll do that. No problem at all. Again, thank you so much, man, for taking the time out. Thank you for all the support that Canyon keep giving me personally and also my podcast and stuff. So thank you so much for that. And enjoy the rest of your day, dude. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you. You too.
All right, man.
Bye.
Be safe. What's up, Moritz? Welcome to the podcast. If you could, introduce yourself, mate.
Perfect. So I'm Moritz. I'm working in the R&D department, also with Daniel. Job title, I'd say, is currently it's a senior product development engineer. That's the official one. So working with Canyon for almost 6 years now on the R&D stuff, basically. So that's pretty much, we started as a pretty small team back then with maybe 12 or 15 people. Right. Now we got around 60 people or something in the R&D, so it's been growing massively.
Wow.
And then also, the things you're doing in the day-to-day business, that's also changing for sure over the time.
Yeah.
Still, it's
been interesting to hear because Daniel's been with Canyon for like 10 years. And you've been there for 6, so
exactly.
That's
because Daniel, he still started in Roman's house, But it's just a handful of guys at Canyon, and that's the time when Daniel started.
Yeah, he said there was like 150 when Daniel started, which is
super senior.
Yeah. Do you know how many is there right now in your offices and stuff?
In Koblenz, it's I think around 600, 700. So, yeah.
Wow.
Now we got another, another 100, 150 all over the world.
Right.
Right. US, pretty much in every market, you got a Canyon company. The same as Canyon UK, for example. You get it in France, Australia. So there's many markets where we also have our own companies handling the markets around there.
It's so interesting to see how it's grown pretty fast. If 10 years is quite fast for a company to grow to sort of that scale, to penetrate so many different markets and stuff too, right? It's super interesting.
Definitely, it's global nowadays for us, for sure. Especially since we had the US. When was that? 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I watched a cool video actually on Vital where you went over and did the. I think
it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked good.
Did some nice heli drop in Whistler.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, never done that before, so that was pretty cool.
That's a cool experience, man. So, what did you do before you joined Canyon?
I've been pretty much for riding. I've been riding my whole life for sure. Okay. Yeah. So been riding with some smaller brands before. Also as team riders, with Alotech at the time.
Okay.
Downhill riding basically.
Really?
The German Cups, European Cups, did a couple of World Cups as well, but on a pretty basic level, so not competing with any of the top guys there. That's already quite some time ago. And then there was also like in parallel for when I was going in school and then in university. I was always thinking about would be cool to do something with bikes, and then studied mechanical engineering there. Spent some time also in the automotive industry, in what you do in Germany with Porsche. And but then pretty quick realized that working on bikes, that's the passion. And I mean, you spend so much time in your work day to day, and it's definitely benefit if you do something what you really can what you're really interested in and what you really have passion about.
100%, man, 100%.
Exactly. So that's why we. Then I thought, let's give it a go at Canyon. Let's see how it is. And now it's for 6 years already. So,
just quickly, sort of slightly off topic. Have you ever struggled with, your hobby being your job?
For sure. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's cool, of course, but then when you do during the day, you're just focusing on bikes, and then in the evening you go riding with your friends and stuff, and then you're still continuing talking about bikes, and then sometimes it can be a bit too much if you go into detail, and then it's more about just talking about random stuff and less talking about bikes in the evening. For sure, go riding, but maybe trying to focus a little bit on other topics when it comes to discussing things. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing to say that, dude. I think I speak to people in the bike industry almost every day, and I think it's a normal thing to sometimes feel a little burnt out and a little bit like I just want to get away from it a little bit, and just especially if you've got friends that don't work in the bike industry, to them it's so cool that you're in there and they just want to talk about it. And I feel you
exactly.
For sure. So day to day,
you need to consider it's still a job. It's for sure a small percentage. It's about thinking the bikes. It's about thinking what's coming up in the future. It's about testing and stuff. It's a small percentage. I mean, most of the time it's about making it happen. Trying to improve things, trying to improve processes, doing the hard work, the drawings, confirm the drawings, a lot of traveling and stuff. So it's for sure the cool parts. It's unfortunately it's getting less and less. The bigger the company also is getting.
Sure. And what is it like right now? Because you guys are all working from home. You're not in the office or anything. How are you finding the Corona times at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty lucky in Germany for sure.
Okay.
So we've been all of the time we've been able to ride. Yeah. So for sure, you shouldn't travel to any far or remote places. I guess that's the same in the UK. But since we are living, Koblenz is not a big city. Within 10 to 15 minutes, can go pretty much from everywhere in the city to the trails.
Right.
So for sure, we've been riding a lot more than before.
Yeah.
But when I think about the recent years, we've been traveling just so much. 5 to 6 times to Asia pretty much every year, and then. I also went to the races, or I tried to go to all the downhill races, which you got in the summer in Europe. And then you also have testing in between there, doing a lot of stuff in south of France, also with Fabien and those guys. So we've been, I've been on the road pretty much every month or every 2 weeks for the last couple of years. So now it's been changing a lot.
Nice to take a breath.
exactly. It's nice to take a breath. And I haven't been riding so much for the last 6 years, for sure.
Same, mate. Same. It's good. It's real good.
That's pretty good. Now working wise is all right. I mean, everybody is in a home office, obviously, and remote work's not something new for us. So, I mean, we've been doing it for a long time already.
Yeah.
Then we got a computer virus issue in December already. That was the first crisis we went through. And that also led to a couple of changes in the IT infrastructure. So, yeah, we have basically everything is cloud-based nowadays. So it's super easy to access also from home. So that was a bit of a benefit for us, that Corona crisis, that we had the other crisis before. So we could handle it pretty well.
Interesting. So talk to me about your day-to-day job. What sort of things do you do within Canyon? We've sort of given a little bit of an insight, but Daniel was really good at sort of explaining a little bit of like what a normal day/week sort of looks like. So what do you do normally?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, in R&D for us as product engineer, it's really from the beginning. After you see a whole project, I mean, can be 1.5 years. It can be more if it's a more complex project. It's basically from scratch to mass production. Yeah, so that's we handle pretty much everything. And then on top, if you're a little bit longer with the companies, then that's for sure organizational things. We think a lot about how to improve our efficiency, how to change processes, especially when the company is growing a lot. So that's also taken a big part nowadays from my time. So I'd say maybe 30% of the time is managing those things.
Right.
And the other, 50-60% really handling the projects. And then, it's for sure also about testing and thinking about new stuff. But it's unfortunately, that's maybe 10-15%, I'd say, of the whole time.
Right. I think if anyone hasn't seen some of the videos online, there's some super cool videos sort of looking around your Canyon HQ. Sort of the production process is super interesting, how everything's so organized and in boxes in very typical German style. Everything is looking perfect, and everything's a system. But if anyone hasn't watched, like it's well worth. I think I was watching one the other day. I think it was Bike Radar came out and did one, which I believe you were in, which is really interesting. So for sure, if you've not seen the process that you guys have put in place and sort of the facility, it's well worth checking out. It's pretty cool. So one of the main reasons we're sort of chatting today is because of the Strive, which I've been riding, like we were saying before we started recording. I've been riding this thing for like 3 months, probably ridden it way too much, but it's a good thing.
Got everything in place, huh?
Everything's still working fine, actually, which is really good.
Broken.
No, nothing's broken. I put a couple of sets of brake pads in it, but that's pretty much it. So it's been good, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time riding the bike. I mean, I really, really have. And we were saying again before we started recording that I've had more time on this bike than I usually do, and I'm not a pro rider by any stretch of the imagination, but I'd like to think that I can ride a bike pretty good, and that I can sort of, after a bit of time, start dialing it in and figuring out what I like and what I don't like. One of the major features on the Strive is the click-clack, as I call it, or the shapeshifter.
Shapeshifter, yeah, exactly.
Which you've had quite a lot to do with. So can you just explain a little bit about your involvement in the shapeshifter, the idea behind it, and what it actually does? Because you'll be able to explain it a lot better than me.
Exactly. Not easy to explain, because you have to keep in mind a couple of different things. Maybe to start a little bit from the history side, it's a second model now, the current Strive, which is on the market, which is featuring the shapeshifter. So the Strive before, we had that until 2018. Okay. I think 15 to 18, we've been selling that. That was also coming with a shapeshifter system, so it was the first one. And initially, we've been trying out, or that was actually before my time at Canyon. The guys have been trying out a lot about, okay, if you think about how you ride a mountain bike, it's very diverse. So it's a vehicle. You have to do very steep climbs with, and you also have to be on super steep downhills, especially in enduro. And when you think about climbing and when you think about descending, you would usually, if you want to have the ideal bike for either or, you would probably go for the cross-country bike for climbing, and then you would go for the downhill bike for the downhill trails. Yeah. Then when you take a look at those kind of bikes, they have different geometries, they have different kinematic suspensions and whatever. And we've been trying to put everything together in one bike, so that you can adjust your suspension, you can adjust your geometry, you can adjust your kinematics on the fly to have a bike for climbing, and at the same time also have a bike for descending.
Yeah.
So how it actually works, you could also argue, why do I need a shapeshifter? I have a lockout, for example, in my shock, or back in the days, it's been also pretty common to travel the fork, so you can lower the fork.
Yeah.
But what all those systems do, they just influence one thing of the bike. Like, for example, if you lock your shock, or if you have a pedal climb switch on your shock, then you just adjust the damping. For example, if you travel your fork, the old U-turn forks, for example, then you just adjust the geometry of your bike. But our system is the only one where you at the same time adjust the geometry of the bike, but also the kinematics and the suspension.
Yeah.
So when you want to climb, you want to have a steeper angles, but at the same time, you also want to have a stiffer suspension. And our system does both of it at the same time.
Right.
And all the other systems, they just do usually just do one thing.
It's quite a sort of alien thing to do, though. I think when you first start riding it, do you know what I mean? It's kind of weird to think, right, okay, you've got to sort of, because I'll be honest, I wasn't entirely sure at first if it was even working and how it was working. So it took me a few rides to maybe like figure it out. But I think I'm actually on the 2019 8.0, right? So I feel like with that one, you have to just unweight the bike a little bit. Click, and then you can then feel that the whole bike geometry has shifted. You're straight away sat a lot more upright. I think what do you know what the numbers are off the top of your head? Like how it actually
1.5 degrees
1.5.
pretty much.
Yeah,
1.5 degrees and head angle and C-tube angle.
Right.
It was all of the angles of the bike.
Okay, so I think that's what I wasn't doing. I was just clicking it and just sitting back and being like, oh, not a lot's really changed. But you have to sort of figure out, okay, just unweight the bike, and it sort of kicks in. But it makes a huge difference for climbing. It definitely reduces pedal bop, like almost instantly goes away, and it turns into a bit of a XC weapon, really.
Exactly.
And then you get to the top of the trail and you just want to drop into something steep and gnarly. And you literally just hit the button. It goes into clack, which is super cool names actually. I kind of like it. And then the first time you hit a bump, it releases, and then you have you're back on a slack sort of enduro trail bike.
That's for sure something. Yeah.
Go on.
We've been learning from the old model, because for the old model, you really had to have the timing right. Yeah, you had to hit the button and then unweight or weight the suspension and then release it at the same time again. So that, you needed to have some kind of learning curve to really use the system properly. Whereas the new one, it's really just hit the button and then it presses you the first compression you get on the down, and then you will go in the down mode.
Yeah,
exactly.
And this is the newest version, which you've sort of partnered with Fox. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then I guess I haven't ridden that one because I'm on the 2019 one. But
no, that's the latest one.
Oh, it is the latest one. Okay, sorry. Okay, I have written it.
I'm talking about the change between
the original
before 2019, 2018. We had a very different system. That system we also did by our own. So we've been purchasing all the small parts, did all the construction for that gas spring assembly part. But for the current version, we've been, you have to be honest. Our main focus is bikes and not suspension products.
Yeah.
Something similar. So we've made a decision to partner up with very experienced company, Fox, to do so, because for sure they have more knowledge when it comes to about hydraulic products, how to source it, how to maintain it, how to do the QC. Yeah, so it's very different to regular frame parts, what we usually do.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess we benefit for sure.
I think when I first got the bike and unboxed it, I was with a friend of mine, and our initial reaction when we saw the lever was like, oh, it looks like it could be in the way. And I don't know if you guys had any of that feedback originally, but I was a bit like, oh, I don't know. I don't quite understand where my thumb's going to fit. But it's weird that you just sort of get used to it and it's not an issue at all. I think the only thing would be when you are in the click mode, you do have to move your hand a little bit. But again, I think once I'd set it up a little bit better, because you've got 3 different stages of where that lever can actually sit, I pulled it all the way in closer to the bar, and it's almost, it's almost gone, and you can't even really tell it's there. For anyone who hasn't seen it, there'll be a photo attached. Social media or something. I'll post a photo somewhere for people, but it sort of sits just underneath, over the top. Sorry, if you drop a lever, so it's all there on one little sort of toolkit almost. So you had quite a lot to do with the development of that as well. Is that correct? So did you help design the lever and stuff?
For sure, yeah, definitely. Cool. So when you think about levers, it's a super complex topic as well, because you've got, depending on the size of your hands and also how your preferences are, how you want to have your brake levers, in which angle, and also your shifting levers. There's so many different preferences. Even though if you can have the same hand size or whatever finger length, there's people setting it up totally different. So it's really hard to find a good compromise there to make it easy, accessible for everyone, or operable for everyone, but also at the same time not having it in your way and that it feels annoying or whatever. So for sure, you need to have those adjustments, which you've been talking about before, just to make sure that everyone is going to be happy with the product at the end. Yeah. So there's not one way how you would set it up or whatever, so you really have to be flexible. Definitely.
Yeah. And like I said, I think I'm a probably good sort of test pilot on this, because I have used it for quite a long time and I have figured out the best way of setting everything up on the bike, and I've got it pretty much dialed right now and no issues at all. I don't know how I'd ride without a click clack shapeshifter now.
It's not easy to put all those because now you have the shapeshifter lever on one side and also the dropper post lever on the same side, and really to put everything on top of each other with the clearances given, and then you have to consider SRAM brakes or Shimano brakes or whatever. They can be totally different when it comes to clearance to be able to assemble other parts underneath it. So it's really tough to find a good compromise which is working for all the components. Try to spec there, and at the same time also feel good, and you still have adjustment. You need to have adjustment for that, so it's a lot of tricking back and forth. And
for sure,
it was a cool project, definitely.
no doubt. So as far as if we're just talking about the Strive, for example, at the moment, how much did you have? Do you have any more involvement with the sort of prototyping of the new bike as well, or was that mainly Daniel and that team?
For sure, for the new Strive, the one which is currently on the market, I've been involved in everything.
Right.
So in 2016 already, we've been building prototype bikes for the one which is on the market right now. And that's usually test mules we have there. But also we've been in contact with Fox at that time, also working on spec sheets, how to improve the shapeshifter system. Of course, how to improve geometry from the bike. 29er wheels was in discussion at that time, not really common. So,
oh wow, it's crazy that you're sort of looking
very early.
You're sort of looking so far in advance. It's something that me and Daniel spoke about too. Actually, was you're sort of trying to figure out market trends and where this is going, and you
have to be in your day-to-day job. You have to be 2 years ahead, pretty much. And then when you think about concepts and stuff, it's more that you're 3 to 4 years ahead. what is on the market right now. So it's it's cool, but it's also not easy to foresee what the future is.
No, and I guess the thing is too, like these things don't happen overnight. You know, bringing a new bike to market is a couple of year process minimum. You know, if you really rushed it, what are we talking? 2 years, something like that, to rush a bike to market.
If you do it quick for us, then it's 18 months, I'd say.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Then it's for sure not with the shapeshifter system or not with any crazy new kinematics layout. It's more about doing some small improvements on an existing model.
Yeah.
Then it's possible for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So this is about people and behind the bike. So are you still racing? I noticed in 2016 you were doing the EWS series and stuff. Are you still doing that?
I've been, obviously this year, there's not much racing going on.
No.
Last year I didn't, to be honest, unfortunately.
Right.
I was thinking about this year, doing some races again. I think the last big one I did was in 18 in Finale EWS?
Right.
18 or 17, I don't remember, to be honest.
Okay.
That was a big one. Hey, that was the 2 days racing there.
Yeah.
Only pedaling, no shuttles. Hey, first day 2,000 or 2,500 elevation. Second day again. Wow, that was.
It's a big days.
Sure. But it's super important because you need to know, okay, where's the racing going?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's good for product development too, I guess, for you to be out there testing it real time on the sort of tracks that you want the bikes to be ridden on, I guess, to some extent. Do you liaise with some of the team as well, pros and yeah? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our teams, they're factory teams, both the enduro and the downhill team. So with the FMD team is a little bit different because they still have their own structure, which them we are working together for this year. But the other teams, they're 100% owned by us. So we provide everything, the structure around it. We can define, with which riders are we gonna work with? How does the setup look like?
Yeah.
We for sure work with those guys when it comes to new bikes, new components. Definitely. So we are in direct discussion all of the time.
Yeah. It's funny. I asked Daniel a very similar question, and I asked him, out of all the pros you've worked with, who are the best ones at sort of giving you feedback and telling you what works in their opinion and what doesn't? Because let's be honest, man, like some people just are fast, but they can't relay information. But some people, like Fabian's probably a great example. He can relay. He's, from what I see, he's bloody good at understanding how a bike's working and what needs to be changed. So who's good to work with?
I mean, if you're fast and you don't, if you're already riding on the top of the World Cup, and then it's for sure tough to try something new because then you're afraid of maybe if you change, you're getting worse and not better. But I'd agree for sure. I mean, with Fabian, it's a little different because he's not an active racer anymore. So he's not riding in the World Cup, so he can try for sure a lot more different things or more extreme things than the ones which are riding in the World Cup at the moment. Because if you change something, if you make too big changes, then of course you could lose time. Worst case. Yeah. So, to be honest, like everyone who's racing at the moment, they prefer just to do like little steps and not go too crazy about it. Whereas Fabian, you can, basically
give
try
anything.
We've been doing some extreme stuff. For sure, for the last sender development project we've been doing, maybe you've seen some photos of some bikes over the last. So maybe you can talk about that already. We've been doing some really crazy stuff, like for example, BB heights, which you would think, oh, that's crazy. Yeah, you can't ride it. Same for all of the angles and reach numbers you have on the bike. But we made a prototype, and we've been super flexible when it comes to all of numbers. So you could basically keep the same bike, but adjust many things which you have not been able to adjust before. And we for sure gain a lot of knowledge about that. Definitely.
Cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Couple more questions, dude, before we wrap up. So, best and worst part of your job? Most fun, most boring. What are they?
Best part, writing.
Of course.
Yeah. Or going through to finale or to Nice or whatever and try the new stuff. So let's say you just receive a new bike, new prototype, whatever, and then go out riding it. That's for sure.
Right.
Why you do it, and for sure also see how the races are handling with the products. You see that everyone is happy with the bikes, and to be able to provide them the best material, to be able to compete on the highest level of racing. That's for sure. Two best things, I'd say. Worst things for sure, it's like emails in the morning. Bullshit email. Oh, this is not working. This is not working.
Yeah, there's got to be some rough with the smooth, man, hasn't there, in this industry?
That's for sure.
It's not all riding bikes and smiling.
Drawings for sure. Checking drawings is shit.
Really? So you're just going through sort of frame drawings and part drawings and stuff like that?
Going through production drawings.
Okay.
So you have to be super accurate because it's very, very important to make it right. But it can be very, very slow going process.
Okay. And the final question, I asked Moritz to ask this as well. Well, I asked him if what he'd like to ask you and also Jack. Moritz just basically wanted to know, where do you think the future of mountain biking will be in, let's say, 5 years? What do you see happening? And if you have any little insights on new products, dude, that's always good to drop those.
Maybe we need to talk about Daniel again. Maybe I can provide you some NDA. What you see over the last years, 10 years ago, there's just been a handful of guys riding mountain bikes. And when you think about gravity riding, it's been a lot less, just a handful of guys really doing something like this. But whereas when you now go in the woods, there's crazy lot of people. It's almost like playing football or whatever. You get so many people in there. Yeah. And not necessarily the crazy downhill guys, which we were back in the days. It's families. Yeah.
Totally.
It's gonna evolve a lot more in that situation that mountain biking is not riding on gravel roads like it's used to be a couple of years ago for most of the people. It's most of the people, they go on trails, they go on trail parks. So it's it's going to be very common to ride trail parks and not gravel roads or whatever. Yeah. And for sure the bikes, they're going to evolve in that situation, on that direction as well, to be able to provide the best, support for those guys. You don't necessarily need to be a top racer or whatever to enjoy the bikes, but also entry-level riders riding in trail parks and whatever, they have to have the perfect material for that. For that usage.
Yeah. And what about e-bikes? Where are you at with that? Me and Daniel had a pretty interesting little conversation about the direction of e-bikes and where it's all going. For me personally, my take on it is that batteries are only going to get smaller, and that at some point it'll just be a choice whether you have E on or E off. That's personally where I think this is going to go. But I'm curious to hear like what you think, where all this is headed, and what's your opinion on e-bikes, dude?
So e-bikes, we can have a lot of fun on that. We've been riding them 5 years ago already for sure, and been talking about whether that's a fit for Canyon or not. And basically at that time, all the systems, they were crazy big. The first Bosch systems, they were super heavy, super big, and the problem was you couldn't build a proper geometry around those systems. Just with the introduction from our first e-bike, with the Shimano motor, that was the first time when we were looking at the system and thinking, okay, we can actually build a bike which is fun and which can fit the brand. And so we didn't want to join that trend just because for the sake of joining it, just to make money, because not what we want. We wanted to have a product which we also believe in, Yeah. So, and for sure, that is going to evolve a lot. I mean, in e-bikes, there's still a lot of big improvements to be made when you think about weight, for example. When you think about sizes of batteries, I guess there's going to be two trends over the next couple of years. Like you have like the common systems with the high torque systems, like the Bosch and Shimano and Brose specialized systems you have at the moment. Those ones are going to be going to get bigger batteries for sure, and you have super wide range with those bikes. But it also comes with a certain weight. And at the same time, going to be new bikes which are lighter and more feel like you just. The ideal thing would if you have an e-bike and it feels on the trail just the same as a trail bike.
Yeah.
And I think, as soon as you're around 17 kilos, for example, you're not going to feel a crazy disadvantage on the trail just because of the e-bike. But it can for sure help a lot of people riding more trails. Yeah,
definitely. No, I agree with you, mate. Totally. Cool. Well, it's been a blast just to sit and chat, mate. Hear a bit more about you and Canyon and
thanks.
The process that you guys go through. No, mate, not at all. An absolute pleasure. We're going to hand over to Jack real quick. So again, thank you very much, man, for taking over.
Okay.
Taking
thank you very much. Yeah, thanks again.
Okay. Up next, Jack Noi of Canyon UK. Dude, thanks for doing this. I know we've been chatting off air for like 10 minutes, but here we go.
It begins now.
It begins now. Now we can really start talking. Before we started recording, now we've already heard from Daniel and Moritz about different aspects of Canyon, and we've been talking a little bit too about the bike that I've been riding, which is the Strive. I've had the 8.0, which has been an amazing bike to ride, man. A strange situation to be riding the bike in. I think pretty much once the bike landed and I had like some pretty sort of cool plans to sort of take it on the road with me, go visit some bike shops and like go riding in different places in the UK, but then we got locked down. So
did you get any riding in before you got locked down or not?
One weekend, I think. One weekend, yeah, which is the stuff that I actually wanted to ride a bike on, which is sort of the opposite side of the Peak District where I live, which we've sort of been told, as most people know if you listen to this, wherever you are in the world, like you couldn't drive to ride somewhere, you had to ride there. So that's like just a little bit too far away from my house to actually go and ride some of the more gnarly stuff in the Peak District. So unfortunately I've ridden this bike more than I've ridden any bike ever in my life, but it's all been from my house, some sort of relatively good stuff. But I've spent a hell of a lot of time riding it, and I think it was Moritz I was talking about this with, that I feel like the last few of these that I've done, you've had the bike for a very limited amount of time, but also, and that means normally you might ride once or twice a week, so you don't get it set up perfectly. Whereas this, I feel like I've had enough time on it to really dial it in, and now I feel like 100% comfortable on it. It's been good. It's been really cool to actually have a bike for, like I said, a long enough time to dial everything in, figure out how it all works, and really get to know it, which is good. And now I feel like I'll probably go ride Fest Series on it. To be honest, I'm that comfortable.
Super comfortable. You're having fun with it.
Yeah.
Similar story. I got the Strive bought with my own money as my mountain bike, and I've been the same as you, like riding from my house and kind of doing miles on the bike, but actually because it's 29, it's not too bad. I don't mind it
for sure. And I think it's a great way to test the Shapeshifter too, of being able to go out and do some longer rides, because I've done some pretty big rides. I've done like bigger rides than I've ever done, to be honest. I did like a 40-mile ride not that long ago, the weekend before last. So for me, I don't really sort of lean towards that style of riding. I prefer sort of the odd push up and just ride some tech downhill stuff.
Bit session in.
A bit of session in. So we can't do that at the moment with friends or anything. So it's been the longer sort of just get out and just put some miles in. So I've been enjoying it and just sort of learning, how the Shapeshifter works. Which at first I didn't quite understand it. I'll be very honest. Like I didn't understand how it was going to work, if it was going to work. But I'm pretty much a convert now to the fact that it's a really, really, really useful system, and it's super easy to use once you've got your head around it.
Yeah, it's super subtle, but I don't know. I had the Strive before this one, like the 27.5 one,
right?
And like I bought it because I wanted the travel and like a Canyon and quite like the size of the XL and everything else, and kind of the Shapeshifter was there, and I thought it was cool. I just joined the company, but actually I used it all the time, you know, like then when the new one came out, I thought, well, I get the next one because it's a bit bigger again because I'm quite tall. But yeah, I use the Shapeshifter all the time. It's a small change, but I kind of would be a little bit let down if I didn't have it.
Yeah, I think my initial perception too was it's like a lockout, but it isn't, because you still have a little bit of suspension. It's just a lot more comfortable for pedaling, especially uphill.
It just sticks you up a bit. Yeah, exactly. Sits a bit forward. So that's the main thing for me. But no, it's cool. It's good for around here. So because I'm based in Surrey Hill, which you ride a lot, Davey, when you're down.
A little bit, yeah.
But we kind of just bomb the steep trails and then winch back up to the top. So it's super short descents and short climbs, but they are steep, so we need all the help we can get.
For sure. No, it's good. Really, really good system. Anyway, before we get into that again, a little bit more probably. Same thing as did with Daniel and Moritz. Sort of explain a little bit more about sort of when you joined Canyon, and what did you do before you were at Canyon too? Have you been in the bike industry for a while, or?
Yeah, so from the beginning, I started in a bike shop, so Cycle Works, which has now, like, one of the branches become like MB Cyclery, which obviously you go to a little bit. And it's a little bit disbanded now. Ace Bicycles as well. It's kind of been bought out as Ace Bicycles. So, but it was a great chain of shops. It's just 4 shops, really kind of close-knit staff between the shops, and some really good, like, riders rode all the time. The workshop was I felt like the workshop was like the heart of it.
Okay.
So it was nice to have like that experience where like you learn the value of having like a properly set up bike and doing like a really good job, because in the end that's kind of what impressed the customers, and also that's what you notice when you're out on your bike. So that kind of got my head ticking a bit on that, like mechanics side of things. And yeah, like I say, worked with some amazing guys there for I think 2 or 3 years. And during that time I was quite into my downhill. So was going to a few kind of local downhill stuff, a few of the BDS. And Bernard Kerr literally lived over the road from the bike shop, and I lived just down the road from the bike shop. So lived pretty locally. And I kind of like see him around when we were in college and stuff. It wasn't the same college, but when I started in the shop, see him a bit more and started riding together, going to the races, and he just kind of started riding pivots, and then he's did a couple of years kind of on that privateer kind of setup, and then he slowly started to build a bit of a team with those guys, and then asked one year if I would go and do the mechanics of them on the World Cups. But at the time, I was renting a flat with my other half, and kind of it was at a point where the budget in his team like couldn't support to pay a mechanic, and also I couldn't really be without the, you know how it is, like couldn't really take the hit financially. So I sort of declined that year, and a friend of mine, Ben, did it for a year. Said it was good fun, so it was definitely a cool thing to do. So the next year, Bernard had a bit more budget, and said he could take me on. So I did that for 2 years with those guys.
Oh, wow.
So
cool.
I had Elliot Jackson, Michaela Gatto for a year, and then Emily Siegenthaler the following year. So it was it was an amazing time. So I did that 2014, 2015, and then like that job's quite full on just in the summer because you're away a lot. And my other half sort of, in the end was kind of it was pretty tricky, because you're away so much. So I thought I'd better get a job at home, and I was quite lucky. Like Canyon had been growing kind of quickly in the UK from around 2013, 2014, and they're kind of building a bit of a UK customer service team. And when I was in this bike shop in Cycle Works, our specialised rep, Nick, was like, we go and do road race. I like road biking as well, in case someone's interested, but maybe not. But like at the road races, like see Nick a little bit, and yeah, like kind of got on well. So I just messaged him when I got back from Red Bull Hardline in 2015 and said, like, have you got any jobs going at Canyon? I see you're there now, and how is it? And he says, yeah, it's good. Like, it's changing loads, growing really, really quickly. Come in for a chat. So like a week later was in Kingston. They had a little office there with like, I think I was employee number 7.
Really?
Had a little chat with him, kind of went in there as like someone to help out with the technical service, like the little kind of warranty claims that we do on reverse, bit of mechanics as well. And then that was it. So started there. I did the kind of technical service department position for 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, kind of kept growing. And then there was a position available for an events coordinator. And because I've, been going around with Bernard and kind of helping out with the pit setup and everything else, kind of put my case forward that I could maybe do a good job of it.
Right.
And yeah, got that job. So did the events coordinating for a couple of years. And then
and what was that, sort of demo days or?
Exactly, yeah. So it kind of started off just if like a third party hosts a test day, like a magazine like hosts like MBR demo day or something like this, we'd just turn up to them, and then we kind of got a bit more ambitious and started doing our own ones, like Canyon sessions. So it was good. Like I was kind of learning on the job, but it was really interesting. It was kind of good for Canyon because obviously we're just on Canyon.com. So before that time, you just had to take a leap of faith really to buy the bikes. You do get, when you buy a bike, you can return the bike after 30 days if you're not, or within 30 days if you're not happy with it. But at the same time, you're still spending the money and it's still getting shipped out to you. It takes a week. So having demo days was kind of a good step, I felt, for us. And there was so much demand, over those few years, we released some really cool bikes like the new Spectral, the Strive, although it had been out for a year or so, by the time we started doing events, there was still a lot of people kind of curious about that and the first Shapeshifter. So yeah, no, it was amazing. So that just kind of grew and grew, and then and now I'm kind of filtered over a little bit into the marketing position. So yeah, still heavily involved in the events, but yeah, also kind of the UK marketing side of things as well.
Got you.
So
okay,
that's me up till now.
Well, that's pretty much. We met on the Neuron launch.
Yes, exactly.
Which I got invited down to, which is really good. And to be honest, you guys have got, a lot to be. I've got to thank you guys a lot, for this series, because it's from that I thought I should do something more with this, and do sort of a whole behind the bike series, not necessarily aiming more at, breaking down bike geometries and all that sort of stuff. It's more about the people that make, bikes come to market. And I love this side of it because it just adds a little bit more personality to things. Like you said, someone might necessarily just go on Canyon.com and buy a bike, but it's always cool to hear about the people that have made that specific bike that you're buying. Who is it that's actually made that come to market? So like hearing your backstory and hearing Daniel's and Moritz's, it's super interesting because you wouldn't know that, let's say Moritz, he's helped build the Shapeshifter, but you wouldn't know that he's still, well, maybe not now, but he was racing EWS at the time, and the guy's a legit good bike rider.
He's a legit rider for sure. Yeah.
So it's interesting just to hear more about the people basically behind the scenes, and that's one thing that I took away from going down to your launch. That was my first ever proper bike launch to visit, and you sort of realise that everyone's sort of got a cool story, and there's some really nice people in these sort of companies that you wouldn't necessarily even know exist unless you go to a demo day or to a launch, if you're lucky enough to go to one of those.
And you maybe only see one side of them as well. Like if they're just doing a product presentation, it's kind of a little bit of a different vibe to it, chatting to them on a Friday morning.
Totally. And I think it's always interesting too to hear about how people get into the bike industry. I don't know about you, but especially with having the podcast, I often get asked, how do you get a job in the bike industry? So to hear you start in your local bike shop, and that does seem to be a running theme throughout the bike industry, no matter whether they're a brand manager or a product designer or a marketing guy. A lot of people start in the local bike shop, meet sales reps and agents, and that seems to be a way of sort of getting in.
I think it's so cool because we got a bit of a bigger team now. It's like 20 20 people in Canyon UK.
Okay.
But you can definitely you can train people up and like, you know, customer service team on the phone and everything else. But if you worked in a bike shop, I don't know, you just seem to get up to speed a bit quicker because you're used to like having to know, you know, across a pretty broad range of bikes and you know, lights, whatever you're selling in your shop. You kind of have to know your price points and everything else, so you can sit there and do your job.
Yeah.
And that like skill set and like having the knowledge between you know, how a SRAM shifter works and Shimano shifter works and just little things like that just means that, yeah, I think it does set you up really well.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
And people skills too, that's a big one. I think if you're going to come into the bike industry, it's very much a sort of passion industry a lot of the time, I think. So you've got to be passionate about bikes and, you know, be able to hold a conversation. I think it's pretty important too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also like, being able to ask people, like having that common interest, because if you're in a bike shop, you know, you're never going to earn your millions in a bike shop, so you got to enjoy being there. Yeah. So you want to be into your bikes and everything else. So it sets you up really nicely, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So tell me a little bit then, dude, about your day to day. What do you do on a normal day when we're not in lockdown, or when we are, I don't know. But what do you actually do for your job?
Okay. Let's try and think of an average day not in lockdown.
Can you remember them?
I do primarily work in the office is my main, so we've got an office in Chessington. That's where I go to most of the time. So there we've got marketing coordinator Amy and events coordinator Jem. Kind of work with those guys on kind of looking after the social media for Canyon UK. So we are in control of the UK Twitter account and also the UK Facebook account. So when you go on Canyon Facebook, it's just Canyon, but actually the stuff that gets served to the UK audience is controlled by us. And then, so that's kind of social media side. And then we also do quite a lot of kind of PR. So I suppose the easier side of it, I say easier side, it's just different. So the core media, which I guess a lot of the Hook It listeners will know, so your main bike websites and magazines that are based in the UK or have editors in the UK, you know, we try and chat to those guys a bit, make sure they're given the right bikes, you know, when they need them. So if they've got a particular group test coming up or they're curious on one of our bikes, then we make sure they're all set up with those. So, you know, get an order in, get it shipped out to them. And then we also increasingly trying to get in touch with more mainstream media. So if you can imagine the Times or the Telegraph, you know, want to test a hybrid bike. And for us at the size we are, like that's important. That's kind of the next step for us, is getting Canyon as a bit more of a household name. So we want to make sure those guys, you know, properly informed and they kind of have everything they need to review the bike, build the bike. So that kind of PR side is just a few phone calls, a few emails, and just making sure everyone's taken care of. And then the other side of it is the advertising in the UK. So we're really fortunate to have like a really amazing digital team that are based at headquarters. So the ads that you get served on Google or on most of the stuff you see on Instagram, when you get a sponsored post crop up, is set by those guys. They work really closely of how much stock we have left on certain products. But the print ads you see in a magazine, or if we do a project with a media partner, like a video on the Shapeshifter, let's say, then we kind of plan all that out, make sure that's going out at the right time, according to, I don't know, say if we got a sale coming up on a bike.
It's amazing how much planning that takes, though, isn't it? That's a big job.
It's quite a big spreadsheet, because you kind of have so many dates where you know you're going to have a lot of production of a certain bike. So at that point, obviously, you want to sell some bikes. So, or seasonally, you know, if EWS season starts, you want to make sure people are hearing about the Strive. So that's all really fun. And for me, it's like it's a learning experience, because I kind of come into this working beneath our marketing manager, Holly's at Muck-Off now. But I kind of had my arms reach, but had my kind of ear to the ground and would still do a bit of the PR stuff. But the advertising and kind of, I guess, like classic marketing is new to me, but I really like it. And I think now, like, you have all the analytics software. It's quite nice to see what works and what doesn't. Like, you can't always do that, but at least now you kind of have a better grasp of it. So it's it's great, and everyone's got new ideas all the time. So so that's marketing. And then events, it can be anything from, like, luckily, like, Jem's a really practical guy and kind of can think for himself. So he's great, like, solid set of hands for booking, venues, making sure we've got the right bikes on the van, everything else. But then the other side of it, we go into quite a lot of reporting and marketing for our events. So we kind of want to know how many times certain bikes are ridden, how many bikes were sold off the back of it. And that side is, again, like, really fascinating for me, because it's kind of good to see your hard work, like, the results of it. So that's kind of the main areas that I kind of whirl around it.
Super interesting. Different every day, which is always nice. Yeah, it's always nice.
There's a little bit of driving around as well. So if we've got to go up and see some of the other guys, like some of the magazines, or drop bikes off, go and chat with them. If we're lucky enough to go ride with them and we have time, then that's kind of the best bit, I suppose, is actually riding. But trust me when I say you don't ride quite as much as you think you're going to when you get into the bike industry. Totally
agree with you on that front, dude. I've spoke about that a hell of a lot, how I think you come into the bike industry thinking the same, oh yeah, I'm going to get loads of time to ride. And the reality of it is, A, you don't, and B, you're often a little bit sick, personally, a bit sick of seeing bikes. By the end of the day, sometimes it's like, yeah, I've been talking about them and, looking at them all day, and now I just want to do something totally different. So...
Yeah, I've not got sick of talking about bikes yet, but right. You definitely get a little bit over it. It not in that sense, but just I feel like my other half has a hard time. So you've been on the phone a few times in a day, and you come home and she wants to have a catch up, and you're just like a bit talked out. I don't know how you do the podcast. Yeah.
I always use it with the same analogy. It's like, if you're a builder, would you want to come home and start building houses? Probably not.
Yeah.
You want to have a break from things a little bit, as much as it's a hobby. So I wanted you to take me through a little bit of sort of like the flow of product coming into the UK. Let's say you've got somebody now listen to this and they're considering buying a Strive. So you sort of spoke about it a little bit, but a lot of people might not know that there is a full support team in the UK and actually around Europe now too. Canyon's in the States, you've got a support team in France and all this sort of stuff, right? So
every major market has got like a little headquarters or a little service centre, varying in size. So ourselves in France are probably one of the bigger ones, made up of around 20 people. And what you've got is a local marketing team similar to what I work in. And then you've also got like a customer service and sales team. So those guys actually handle you pretty much from the point where you go on canyon.com, all of the communications, those guys kind of look after. So the processing of your order, if you jump on chat and ask a question about size, it's the guys in the UK that you're chatting to.
Oh, wow.
There's 8 in that team, I think. And then following on from that, the only part that's really direct from Germany is actually the bike shipping to you. So when you order the bike, process the order, give you a follow-up phone call, make sure you're all good and you don't need anything else, to add on, like a mech hanger, and then the bike ships. It's normally if it's in stock, it just goes through the kind of the process out there and then gets dispatched. If it's got a production date, obviously wait till then, and then it ships out to you with UPS. Mm-hmm. And it arrives at your door. So the factory, like, you've probably seen it.
It's
like
insane.
The article was on, and like I've been over there a few times, and it's still like it's just so cool. The production line, like track goes around this huge warehouse. The setup of just like every part is just like has its own little compartment with a QR code, and you can almost trace every little part back to when it started on the shelf to when it's on a specific bike. It's proper German, but it is incredible. So that's that arrives at your door, and then if And then after that, you have a problem with your rear mech, or you crash your bike and you need a replacement chainstay or whatever it may be. That's the UK guys. So if you need to send your rear mech in, then you send it to Canyon UK. We take care of it with the UK distributor. And we just found it just keeps turnaround times a bit tighter than if you're sending stuff into like a big mothership like Canyon Germany. They're busy guys. They're dealing with, maybe a bit of language barrier here and there, or whatever else. And the UK kind of set up just circulating the customer service and the after sales support just keeps things a bit tighter and means we can stay in touch with the customers a bit better. So so it's nice. Yeah. So the service team is two guys in the workshop all the time, all day, every day.
Okay.
And when it's busy, we hire in a kind of third part-time mechanic. And so if you have a warranty issue, or if you need, crash your frame, need a crash replacement, we do discounted frames on those. And you can send your bike in, or actually we collect it more often than not. So put it back in a box. We send UPS around to collect it, do the work on it, and then ship it back.
Right.
So that's if it's a full bike, issue or job that needs doing. And we do occasionally do servicing as well. The reason you may not have heard about it is because the guys are already quite busy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't imagine how many bikes you'd get in for service if you sort of advertise that more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So but the last thing we want to do is if someone's had a problem with their bike and we tell them it's going to be 2 weeks instead of a week because we've booked in a load of service jobs, from our side, that's not a good look. We'd rather, look after those guys properly in need, that have had a disaster. So that's kind of how it's set up. And I don't know if you've seen the bikes come out of the box, like you unpacked your Strive.
Yeah.
So, I think they're pretty easy to put together, but
well, mate, if I did it, I think anyone can do it, to be honest. I'm not a bike mechanic. I'm not, don't really do that too often either, unpacking a new bike. I just don't. So I took it out, threw it in the stand. It's pretty much a case of just sort of putting the bars on. I think the bars actually were already in the stem. I can't quite remember now. It's been a while. But yeah, front wheel in, bit of a setup, some air in the shock and, forks and shapeshifter, and you're pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Because I build a lot of bikes from the box, from the factory.
Right.
Because if we get test bikes in, start the season, it's kind of all hands on deck to get those built up for the demo events we have during the year.
Yeah.
So 40 or 50 bikes. And it's super impressive, the quality of the bikes, because it's pretty different to how, if you've worked in a bike shop, but if you unpack a brand that deals through a bike shop, then the bike shop needs to PDI that bike, because in the end it's coming out of the box kind of at 70 or 80% there. But Canyon, because that bike could end up directly to a customer, it's quite nice. Just take it out, bump up the forks, and you run through the gears, and it's that works. Nice.
You're right. Yeah, I didn't really think of it like that, but there was barely anything to do. You're right, and everything was really very Germanly packed. It was a lot of nice Velcro straps, and there was no chance of anything getting
They're
damaged.
Nice, those Velcro straps.
Yeah, really nice.
You've got to go for a little trip with your bike. They're awesome.
Yeah, they are. That's cool. It's good though. It's nice just to hear that there is a support network in the UK, because I guess in theory, someone new to mountain biking might be a little bit put off by the fact of, I've got to build my own bike. I'm not entirely sure how, and if I can do that, but to know that they do pretty much come 95, probably even more % done.
I get it's less just assembly that's left rather than setup or anything complicated. I think it's possible for anyone to build it. It can be a bit daunting. I totally get it. You open a bike and the handlebars are by the side of the frame, and but all the cables are connected and everything else, so it's actually not too bad at all.
It's true, man. It's true. So the Strive, especially this one that I've been riding, seems to have been a super popular model for you. It fits really nicely in the range as just an all-round enduro, I guess, trail bike.
Yeah, I think the ambition with that bike was to obviously we had a pretty successful bike with the previous Strive, enduro bike.
Yeah.
with I think Fabian winning a load of races on it, and then the Canyon Factory Enduro team, winning a few overalls on it. So it's a quick bike already, but times change, and definitely 29-inch wheels were, still are. They're the fastest kind of wheel as long as you can get on with it in terms of size. So we moved to 29-inch wheels, adjusted the geometry a little bit, but there's definitely like an ambition to make it a bike that's not just for like bombing super steep, fast trails. They also wanted it to work, on your home trails. So I don't know if you chatted to Moritz about the Koblenz trails, but they're kind of similar to Surrey Hills. Yeah. So they wanted to keep the wheelbase a bit tighter, and I think that's why the Strive is pretty popular in the UK, because it's not just a full sled, that's pretty dull on anything but the gnarliest trails. It's still fun. It still pops around to, on a standard UK, we say enduro trail, but it's kind of just trail, unless Wales or something, I guess. But yeah, no, I think that's why it goes well in the UK. And I think that's why, we go to demo days and people get back and they're into it. They see the versatility of the bike. So yeah, no, it's successful. Yeah. I'm really glad you liked it and kind of felt the same. Actually.
No, definitely. I think there is an issue, especially maybe in the UK, of people being overbiked. But you're not going to be overbiked on a Strive. You're going to have probably the right bike for the majority of stuff in the UK. And probably parts of mainly Europe as well. I think, to be honest with you, especially bike parks. I mean, dude, this would be a bike park slayer. He's so good on a bike park.
Get away with the Morzine trip on it, definitely.
Yeah, so, exactly. Cool, man.
It would be in bits by the end of the week. So.
Well, Matt, I've literally not had any issues with it. All things perfect. I've had absolutely nothing to report. The only, and I said this to Moritz as well, was the Shapeshifter was kind of hard to get your head around at first, because I wasn't too sure how it worked, and I'd sort of learning to just unweight the bike, click, and then you feel the whole geometry change, and you feel how much easier it is to pedal. I had a little bit of an issue at first with the lever sort of sticking in my thumb, but again I figured out that you just move it in a little bit, because there's 3 settings, and at first it was sort of all the way out.
You can move that around a bit. So obviously depending on where you grip the bars and stuff. So it's really similar to it's such a cool design actually, that, because you can bolt the reverb. Is it the B1 lever, the thumb pedal?
Yes.
Lever on the reverb.
Yeah.
You can bolt that straight in. I don't know what it is. It's an MX clamp or MMX, I think it is. Whatever that little interface they use to bolt shifters to brakes with SRAM. So it's got that interface, but then we also made a cable pull lever as well.
Okay.
And they just line up perfect. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a bike with a reverb or with a Fox transfer or with like our Iridium post, which is just kind of one of those standard internally routed posts on the cheap models, like cable or hydraulic. It just, everything lines up nice and kind of sits in the right place. And like you say, you can move it around. So I kind of never really hit my thumbs on shifters, but I know people kind of ride a bit more elbows in, I guess, or they've got bigger thumbs than me. But you kind of, definitely people find that, you've got to move a shifter a bit inboard, whatever it may be.
Again, it's just one of those things, isn't it, of spending time with it and figuring out, that just needs to move a tiny bit. And once I'd figured it out, it's fine, it's perfect. Yeah. So
I think it's definitely easier than the old one as well. So the old one, if you never rode it, did you? Because you just came, it's like you rode as a neuron.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine the Shapeshifter lever now that locks into place, the old one was basically, it was just sprung loaded. So you depressed it and that basically opened the Shapeshifter, which allowed it to change modes. So with it depressed, you either had to compress the suspension to put it in downhill mode. It's quite a deliberate movement. And then when you've hit the bottom of the compression, you've weighted the bike to the most point, you release the lever to lock it in that point.
Okay.
And then obviously to put it up into XC mode, you press the lever and unweight the bike then release the lever. There's quite a lot of timing involved. You got, it's sounding harder than it is, right? But you got your head around it. But this one is much better. If you are at a test day or you just get the bike out of the box, there's probably quite a bit less faff and questioning whether it's working than with the old one.
Okay.
Because it's just ride the bike around a bit with the lever locked in the XC mode, and it will pop into XC mode and then release it into downhill mode, and when you hit a bump it will just go there and stay there.
Yeah.
So is definitely improvement. And in the heat at the moment, you know, if you're trying to, I've never done enduro races actually with this Strive. I've not even done a Rogate downhill race on it.
Oh no!
With a new one anyway, new one. But in the heat moment, you know, you don't want to be like questioning what mode you're in or anything like that.
Not
if
at
you're
all.
on a truck stage. So that was kind of was the ambition of that bike. Yeah,
it's good. Again, I think it's good that it's there, you know, sort of in front of you as well on the bars, because there's no issue of I've accidentally left my shock locked out or whatever, which is the worst rookie error.
Well, it doesn't actually matter if you leave it in. I've left it when I first got one. I left it in XC mode and did some shots with one of the guys at work, and it doesn't. Like if you leave a shock locked out and send it, then it doesn't do the shock much good. But obviously this, so the way the shapeshifter works, it basically moves where the pivot point sits in relation to the rocker arm. So it just adjusts how much leverage the bike has over the shock. So if you do leave it in XC mode, it's not like the shock's still a shock. Like it's not got any extra damping in it. So it's not going to put any extra pressure on the shock. So it doesn't really matter if you do, apart from it's going to feel a bit rougher and firmer than it is in downhill mode. So yeah, it's nice that you're not like risking anything by accidentally leaving it in the wrong setting.
Yeah.
Good.
It's good. Love it. Absolutely love it, man. Like I said, thoroughly enjoyed riding the bike, and yeah, having a lot more time to get used to it as well has been a big benefit, I think. I'm going to switch gears on you just a tiny bit right now. So I asked Moritz to set like a question for Daniel and yourself, just to sort of like round this thing off and sort of, you know, look towards wrapping up. So he basically wanted to know what you think is the future of mountain biking. Like, where do you think, you know, there's so much new technology happening, especially with e-bikes. In 5 years' time, where do you think we're going to be? What new advances do you think are going to have happened?
What did those guys say?
He's mainly talked about sort of e-bikes and just becoming lighter and, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah,
I think you can't ignore e-bikes. I want to think of something different to e-bikes though.
Okay.
You know, right? Can I tell you, rather than like where I think it's going to go, where I hope it will go?
Dude, for sure. Yeah, interesting.
And it's almost going backwards a little bit.
I like that.
So I
rigid.
have this theory.
Everything's going rigid.
So yeah, it's not far off, right? But I have this theory that so when you grew up riding, probably when I grew up riding, everyone was on little dirt jump hardtails.
Yep.
You know, like that's probably what you could afford at 16 and a single speed, like ratted out dirt jump bike. And that's probably the only thing that could put up with all the mistakes you're making, you know, on the jumps in terms of being tough enough. And like, I just felt like for me, I learned so much about like riding on those bikes. And I would really love to see people like strip it back and get back to that, because when you do get on your, you know, I'd like full suspension enduro bikes, trail bikes, that are my favorite bikes to ride. They really hope that they get lighter, they get better, the suspension gets, you know, even more amazing than it is now. But just in terms of like the way people ride and people improving themselves as bikers, I'd love for that to get a bit more, you know, get back in the spotlight again. Is like such an amazing path to just learning loads in a short period of time.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, that I always felt Strava, you know, was not ruining it. Like, it's amazing because you can get, you know, if you want to smoke a run, you can get a time and get a com or whatever you want to get a PB, whatever you're pushing for. But I think a lot of people ride on it and then they're just trying to get to the bottom of a trail quickly. And then all of a sudden, like, again, like kind of how I started was we couldn't be bothered to push full runs with a single speed dirt jump bike or a big heavy 42 pound, more than that probably. I can't remember how much downhill bikes weighed back in the day, but they're heavy, you know, and like you're a little weedy 18-year-old kid so
with a motocross helmet on.
You want to push up like 2 corners.
Yeah.
And I felt like that as well. Like even now for me, that's like the most fun part of riding is doing 2 corners 30 times.
Yeah.
And again, like just in terms of improving things and working things out on biking and riding is so valuable. I guess the flip side of that is that e-bikes make it super easy to session, do stuff repeatedly.
It's true.
But yeah, I'd love for that, just kind of those two things, maybe a bit more hardtail riding, just to get back in the limelight again. Just 'cause I think if people got behind it, I think they'd just notice such an improvement in
Dude,
how
that's
they
just
ride.
really, really, really good and fair point, actually. I've never, can't say I've really thought about that, because my own riding style is very much, I love to just go out and session things like that, like just go do 2 corners or rake a corner in and just ride it all day. And I guess a lot of people will have got into mountain biking over the last sort of few years, and their first bike is a full-on enduro bike. And and you are missing out on 2 brakes, everything. Like, you are missing out maybe on that. Just having fun, riding a few corners, slipping off all the time. Like, it's really good. I like that, dude. I like that, dialing it back and getting the fun back into it maybe a little bit more. And I'm with you as well on Strava. Again, I've been there, done that. Having it, just trying to clock up miles, just say you've done it. But now I've gone like the opposite way. Like, I would never use it again, just because I
use it big. If you're a 40-mile ride, you want to pop that on the account and show.
I didn't, but yeah, it's good though. I really like that. It's great.
If the conditions are good and you want to have a go at something, get a time, then I think it's cool. But yeah, I think like going out and trying to just muddle your way through full runs is, it depends on your ambition, doesn't it? Like for me, like I quite like just figuring stuff out. Like for me, that's still important and still interesting to me. Is like figuring out little bits of technique where I'm bad. If you're like trying to just muddle through a full run, then you maybe don't have the time to actually stop and think about it. So sorry, it's not the answer.
No, mate, that's really good actually. I really like that.
To say, well, actually, Canyon are working on a new this in 6 years' time. It'll be out, but I didn't even know them. So.
That's perfect, dude. Awesome. All right. Well, again, it's been an absolute blast riding this bike. For anyone who, because you're the last guest, mate, I'm afraid you're gonna have to do this. So if anyone's interested in looking at a Strive or any other Canyon, what should they do first? Like where to go, who to contact? I'll put your phone number in the show description.
Put my mobile number in there, of course. Now, I say first thing, just go on canyon.com. Work really hard on that website, or not me, but the web team do. And I feel like it's a good, like, at least just explaining like what each bike does, and like whether a Spectral is good for you, whether a Strive's good for you. Like, we've got some bikes that are quite close in terms of travel, but they're very different in terms of what they're best at. So just go through, like, see what you kind of like the look of, then read some reviews. Like, it's good to read a few as well, like, because different people find different bits about the bike and where it excels, and ideally what kind of rider it's suited for. And then also, it sounds like cliche, but like, because as I said at the start, like, we control the UK, like what's served to the UK audience on Facebook. So at the moment they're all canned because of Corona, but all our events are there. We shout about stuff that's happening locally. If we've got any kind of interesting hints and tips, content or stuff from our ambassadors, then you will put it on there, and that's kind of where all the local content gets driven. So I'd say follow our Facebook page. Is a really good start. And then there's also, if you're just new to Canyon and want to know about them, and I mean, you get some interesting advice on there. Some of it's really, really good. There's some amazing guys in that community, but there's a Canyon owners group on Facebook as well. And that's as well. That's kind of impartial. So if you're a bit skeptical about, a brand telling you something and you wanting to, just validate it, then that's also really good. You've got some guys that have lived with their Canyons for a couple of years, can tell you the ins and outs. Maybe just take stuff with a bit of a pinch of salt, but or if you get told what tyre clearance fits, maybe just double check it with us on chat first, in case someone's got confused. But they're probably the main ones. Cool. And I think that's kind of pretty rounded to get like a good picture of what our bikes are about. So,
okay, perfect.
Sweet.
All right, man. Well, thank you again ever so much. Thank you to you, Moritz, Daniel, everybody who's been involved with this little process of getting me to ride this bike and be part of the podcast. yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it myself. Again, thank you so much for doing the podcast yourself. And all the links are in the show description for everybody listening. There's literally everything is down there from Canyon website. I'm going to put a bunch of reviews of the Strive as well, because again, we haven't gone too deep into the actual geometry and all that sort of stuff about the bike, but if you want to know anything, it's going to be in the show description. And if you do enjoy listening to this episode, please reach out, let me know, let Jack know, whoever. And yeah, it's a wrap. Thank you so much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot as well for doing this. Like it's
my pleasure.
It's a lot of commitment side. It's amazing. So.
No problem at all, dude. Right, it's a wrap.
Cool. Catch you soon. Cheers.
Peace. Stay there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for checking in with another episode of our Behind the Bike series. If you enjoyed listening, let me know. If you ride a Canyon, I hope you learned something. If you don't, I hope you learned something. If you're considering buying one, I hope you learned something. And if you're not, I hope you learned something. Have a great and safe time out there, people. One love.